family member, someone you know that enjoys combat sports, especially boxing, why not refer them to this podcast? They'd surely love it. I am not known to disappoint. I am sorry about the schedule changes that's going on in my own personal life here with my daughter starting kindergarten and whatnot. Little schedule changes at work as well. But you can count on me. I'm here to talk boxing with you guys at least once a week, usually putting out other little specials and shorts, fight picks from the future. We'll talk about Andy Ruiz fucking up my parlay, but no, I'm just joking. We had some good fights. We had the Ruiz Ortiz fight, and we had a real epic fight, dude, that I did not expect it to be this good. I thought it'd be a little more one-sided for Estrada. But nonetheless, Juan Francisco Estrada last Saturday took on RG Cortez. And Cortez made this a fucking fight, man. He made this a dog fight. To be honest with you, there's a point, I believe it was the 7th round when Estrada dropped Cortez. And it's didn't even just change the momentum of the fight. I just think that, like, literally, if you didn't have him getting dropped, in that one round, the fight would have just handedly been Cortez's, I think. I think the drop helped them, made it a little closer. I personally thought with that drop, that being a 10-8 round, I personally thought this fight was close to a draw. Very close fight. And I thought without him getting dropped, there'd really be no argument for Estrada to win. Cortez came in there and made this fight dirty. He was not defensively sound. Let me say that right now. He was getting tagged up as well. So that's what made this a close fight. But all the hard shots, came from Cortez in this fight. And he just kind of came out of nowhere to do it. He got dropped and got back up and just kept the game plan. Even though he's getting hit, he was having a lot of success as well. This was a back and forth fight. One guy takes a round, next guy takes a round. Really just amazing. It was really, really a good fight. I encourage you guys to go and check it out. Like I said, I thought it should be a draw, but nonetheless, the one good thing we can really look forward is Estrada Chocolatito 3. Let's go, Chocolatito. But, that was a great fight. And then Andy Ruiz, right? We picked him by stoppage, okay? Just because of that, obviously you guys would think that, I'm going to be biased about saying, he should have done. I'm just being really truthful. I really felt like he could have stopped Ortiz. The thing is that, for anybody that doesn't know, Ortiz is King Kong has always been a very good boxer. King Kong was beating up Deontay Wilder in both their fights. He was winning both their fights before he got stopped later on, in the later rounds. It just was the reason that I had this sturdy pick here for Ruiz by stoppage, though, is really just comes down to the fact that Ortiz is older. He's older, and that's not just his age. He's older. He's been older for a little while, and the thing is, after those Wilder knockouts, he had good. Like I just said, he had good performances against Wilder, but after the stoppage, he came back, had another even almost arguably better performance, and then got stopped again in the later rounds. But he's older, and after those two fights, his fight that he had before this, he looked sloppy in there. He looked sloppy, and he looked older. He looked slower, and he was getting hurt. And if you're getting hurt by Charles Martin, I thought for sure that was the case for me for picking the Ruiz by stoppage. And then lo and behold, Ruiz hurt Ortiz in this fight more than once with those fast hands. My God, for a bigger kind of chubby guy, Ruiz really has fucking just lightning bolts for hands, especially on the inside. The funny thing is that because he has fast hands, a lot of people kind of will say, oh, well, Andy Ruiz real active, or Andy Ruiz, letting his hands go. Andy Ruiz actually doesn't throw barely any punch. He has a very low output as far as the entire heavyweight division is concerned. His output is real down there on the lower end. And what happens is he just has fast hands. So in the little spurts, when someone's trying to come in on him and get in the inside, or when he's sitting there and puts his gloves up and he'll take a couple shots again, and then he says, now it's my turn, now I go. His hands are very fast, and he's very effective, not just because they're fast, but because he's strong and he hits hard, and because he has good shot selection as well. But yeah, he doesn't actually throw a lot of punches, so yet again in this fight that hurt him. But nonetheless, he gets the job done. He wins by unanimous decision, which is deserved. But I really thought he could have done it, man. I really thought he just could have pressed the gas a little bit when he hurt Ortiz, or even just poking the jab out there more. But Ruiz looked good. He looked good, and it's a good win. I just thought that against an aged version of, King Kong, that Ruiz could have got him out of there. And that is what I saw in the fight, that I think that he could have. I think that he didn't give 100%. But that being said, is still looking good, and not giving that 100%, I think is, things look good for him. But I was just really touching on my pick and a little bit of disappointment in there. Now, listen, this is what we're here for. We're going to talk about Savannah Marshall versus Claressa Shields, taking place on Sky Sports in the UK this Saturday, this weekend. And there's a lot to get to here. There's a lot to unpack. So the first thing that I actually want to say to you guys is that there's a lot of talk about, how these two have faced each other in the Olympics, and that fight was so long ago. That's what they talk about in the press conferences. That's what I've heard a lot of, talk about online as far as this fight's concerned. I'm going to just tell it, I was already aware that Savannah Marshall beat Claressa Shields, but I hadn't ever seen that fight. So I went back and I watched that, amateur fight. First off, there's a couple things. There's nothing really to touch on here. I could tell you what I saw when I'm looking at the fight, or what I thought about that first fight. That was kind of my intention for watching that fight from long ago. But I came away with it saying, I'm not really going to say anything about this fight because I don't think it's relevant anymore. One, it was so long ago that both fighters have improved greatly, especially Claressa Shields. I mean, of the two even. She just doesn't look like the same person that was boxing back then. But also, the whole other thing is that this is, it's not the most thrilling fight to watch. Listen, it's the Olympics. They have 4 short rounds is all they have. And it's not a 10-point must system, in the Olympics. If you guys didn't know this, it's not scored the way that boxing is. So when you look at, it's a point system, but it's not the 10-9 must system. So when you look at a fight in the Olympics or an amateur fight, right, you don't look in these Olympic fights and go, hey, I'm going to score that round. And when I watch the fight, that's what's in the comments also. Oh, I gave this round to Claressa, though, but Savannah maybe got this round. We're off already because that's not how you score it. It's a points-based system that is not scored round by round. It's scored, the rounds are just to give breaks and break up the period. The fight is scored as a whole with a continued whole different point system. So that's another whole reason why that fight doesn't matter. And it wasn't that thrilling or anything. Did I think they did some misjustice to Claressa Shields? No, I don't think Claressa Shields won that fight, but the scoring seemed a little off to me. It was, I believe, 14-8. I don't think that is really telling of the fight I saw. But either way, we got to throw that out. These are completely two changed, different fighters many years later and so much more experience later. I have a bit of things to say about both. The first that we'll start with is the GOAT, right? The greatest woman of all time, Claressa Shields. But that is self-titled. I personally do not believe that Claressa Shields is the greatest woman of all time. I think that, yeah, I have my own opinion. I think there's a level of competition discussion to be had about this. And also, people share this kind of feeling about level of competition and who have you fought to, like a, let's say, like a Terrence Crawford, right? But the difference is that, and I throw that out there sometimes, man, sometimes, but not as an overall point. But the difference is with like a Crawford or some people that maybe they haven't, fought all of these great names yet. What you can see them doing is clearly special. And win or lose, you have no doubt that they'd be competitive and most likely win again, and at bare minimum be super competitive with the elites of the division, any name you throw them in there with. When I watch Clarissa Shields fight, I don't exactly feel that way. She does some things very good. One is her head movement. She's got incredible head movement. She kind of just sits in the pocket, standing still, and swivel her head back and forth. She's not like a foot mover, like moving her feet around and dancing around. But she has a good little. She'll take a little back step to get out of distance or back in, and then she'll just kind of like to plant her feet so that she can counter opponents off of that good head movement. That's always been a plus for her. Again, that's something that we didn't see anything of. It's just mostly throwing jabs that are too short at range in the fight in the Olympics. But yeah, she has the 50-50 position when two fighters stand there and trade. And they're both trading, throwing hands at the same time. That's a 50-50 position. She does very well in that position because she can usually land more punches. Clarissa Shields, I don't think has like a true knockout power. Like, I'm pretty sure of that, just from her resume alone at this point. But women also do have the shorter rounds, right? It's not 3 minutes, it's 2 minutes for each round, which I think hurts them. I don't really agree with that. But there's points to be made about even that where maybe it causes more action because a lot of these women fights actually are very high paced. Because they have that less time. I don't know. But, she doesn't have a lot of knockouts. So even though there's not as much time that they give the women, on the other side of things, Savannah Marshall does have a lot of knockouts. So there's that to be said. I don't think she has like huge stopping power. Now that doesn't mean she can't stop girls because she's a very good boxer. And, she's a bigger girl as well. So of course, she's hitting hard at plenty hard enough, right, against these other women in her weight class there. But yeah, I don't think that she has proven stopping power. And standing in the 50-50 and just trading with someone works for her because she's a superior boxer, and she gets her hands are fast enough. She does have pretty fast hands, so usually she's landing more punches. And her foot position, like the way that she likes to use her footwork, is to stand flat-footed in the pocket and put power as much as she can behind shots and have the good head movement because she's staying stationary. So that's her fighting style, is to be like that. Whereas a Savannah Marshall, on the other hand, can move around a lot. She'll move around. She has decent head movement as well, but her thing's kind of more feinting with shots and herky jerky looking kind of wannabe Mayweather thing and moving your head but keeping your hands down. But she can manage it pretty well. She can manage it pretty well, Savannah Marshall, and she has in the past. Now, that's the thing that I wanted to touch on this flip side, talking about how women don't have as much time in the rounds, right? And then they also don't fight 12 rounds, they fight 10. And then they're not 3 minutes, they're 2-minute rounds. But Savannah Marshall has an enormous KO ratio. Now, I don't have her record right here in front of me, but I want to say she's got 17 KOs, which is almost unheard of. I'm going to be frank with you. That's almost unheard of these days in women's boxing, period. Okay? And you have Clarissa Shields, who's like fought good, decent competition. That's another thing. We've talked about this before because I was very high on the Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano fight, right? We covered that a lot. I did with, my cousin did different shows on it. I encouraged them to talk about. I was very high in that fight because those are two women that have very good boxing ability, and they're both dogs, and just to be respected. And I thought that that's a high class boxing match to really elevate women's boxing. This is the other one. But, but, this is the other one. And some people hate on this stuff. So this is a showcase of women's boxing. Even the co-main event is quite good. But I will say that there's a big difference because women's boxing is newer, and because even since it's been around, for the past however many years, it's not that old. It's still new. And also even just this new generation of women headlining events and having a couple more than one or two good women who are fighting, that this is brand new, that we see good high level women's boxing. It's brand new. And so because of that, a lot of these girls don't have so much competition in their weight class. So for Clarissa Shields, who's a bigger girl than, certainly than Amanda Serrano or Katie Taylor, she's not fighting them, and so she has a couple little, like that Hammer girl she fought was all right to give a little bit of a challenge. I mean, but there's not much to be had up there. She's the best by such a long shot, other than Savannah Marshall. So this is the fight to make. Savannah Marshall doesn't have as good boxing ability as Clarissa Shields, but she has proven power, and her knockout rate is highly impressive for women's boxing. She hits very hard. Now, what she lacks in her kind of head movement or countering opponents in the way that Clarissa Shields can, she makes up for in taking good angles. She gets off the angle. If she is able to make you miss on a shot, she likes to step off to the side of you. Then she'll let some shots go. She boxes properly in that sense. That's kind of like her strong point. It's just her style that she found that works for her. Her hands are a lot slower than Clarissa Shields, but they are clubs, and they will crack. And I would not be surprised if she drops, if she drops Clarissa Shields. That will not shock me, and it shouldn't shock you. She has dogs in her hands for sure. And she has, this KO ratio with the shorter rounds and all of that, as we mentioned. Marshall is also big and physical. So Savannah Marshall, I think, if she takes on the game plan of, let me get close to Clarissa, let me try to get a good shot off, even if I get cracked, I could take some shots from Clarissa, getting in close, and then let me have some of these exchanges, these 50-50 exchanges, and see how it works for me, because she's going to get hit more, by Clarissa Shields with the faster hands and the better all-around boxing capability, but Savannah Marshall has a clear advantage in power. I truly believe that. But when I say strong and physical, that has a different meaning. So there's her power in her shots, but also in general, I think she's the bigger woman. She has the bigger build. She's taller, and she could lean on Clarissa Shields. And I believe, turn her if they're in the turn her around, disorientate her, take an angle off, even if you get hit doing it, and just get some of your punches off that will do each one of them more damage, than Clarissa will be able to do to you. So if she maintains that game plan, and if she's getting pieced up a little bit too much, don't be afraid to clinch and get physical and make it a little bit dirty. I think that's her best chance, because she is a lot slower, and because although she is good with her angles and her foot movement, she will have to initiate more, because Clarissa Shields will walk towards her, but she plants her feet. So she's not bouncing and trying to whoop and take this angle while you are and catch her or anything like that. She's just going to walk in flat-footed, stalking, until she can get these 50-50 exchanges. She has to be given them by Savannah Marshall, because if Savannah Marshall wants to get on her bike for a lot of this fight, she totally can. She totally can. Clarissa Shields ain't the best at cutting off the ring and like that's what I'm saying about bouncing around, cutting off the ring, and finding people and making them sit still so she can get on the inside. She's not. She just needs to be accommodated in that, and when somebody does, she has a lot of success. So I think if Savannah Marshall does not accommodate her to stay in close and trade shots when it's not working out for her, get back on your bike, move around. If she comes in, you can make her miss just one good time, or you take a couple against the glove and dip under, get off to the angle, let your shots go, then get on your bicycle again. And then when you want to try a 50-50 exchange, if you hurt her, you just dog her down. You just dog her to death if you're Savannah Marshall. And you get a good crack on her and it wobbles her. You just be relentless at that point and get it over with. And for Claressa Shields, her game plan, again, should be those 50-50 exchanges a bit. But really, I mean, I wouldn't highly recommend that that's your main game plan for this fight. Even though she likes to stand still and whatnot, I say, try to see if, on the contrary, if Savannah Marshall will come and initiate exchanges with you. Because one thing that Claressa Shields can definitely do is plant her feet, stand there, and have Savannah Marshall come in with a barrage of shots that she can avoid mostly and get good counters on a much slower fighter, and not as skilled with her defense in Savannah Marshall. But like I said, they both have I don't like the 50-50 exchanges as well for Claressa so much in this fight, even though she's good at them, for the fact also, like we're saying here, about Savannah Marshall, I believe, being more physical and being able to have her way in the clinch and whatnot, because it's easy to just initiate a clinch when you're standing toe-to-toe with your opponent and throwing shots anytime you want. And if you're the bigger fighter and you weigh more and you're more physical than your opponent, your opponent should try to stay the fuck away from the clinch with you. So that's the way that I see the two different keys to victory. How do I see the fight going down? Who the hell knows? I will tell you right now, this certainly won't be on a Fight Picks from the Future pick. I don't believe, because I actually am gonna, with that take that I started of throw out the old fight they had as well, which everybody lives and dies on. I say throw that out, and I'm still gonna give you a Savannah Marshall prediction. How about that? I do like Savannah Marshall to win this fight because I think that she will hurt Claressa Shields. I also think that they both haven't fought much level of competition, but Savannah Marshall will know what she has, to deal with in front of her in Claressa Shields. She'll know to respect Claressa Shields and her capabilities in the ring because of her name value, because of what she's done in the sport. Savannah Marshall will know that. This is just another little kind of thing I think about. I don't think that Claressa Shields views Savannah, even with the old loss. She's kind of right. It doesn't matter at this stage. And so I don't think that she'll view Savannah Marshall as handedly the toughest test of her career. Because she's fought some other girls. You know what I mean? She's fought more skilled boxers than Savannah Marshall has, and she's calling herself the GOAT, and I just feel like if anybody, and maybe she won't, but I'd really feel, if you told me one of the fighters isn't taking the other so serious, it would be Claressa Shields underestimating Savannah Marshall, I believe. But yeah, not shocking if Claressa can win, but I do think that the fight plays out where Savannah Marshall's more physical on the inside. I think that Savannah Marshall will get on her bike enough to have Claressa stalking in, lumbering in flat-footed, and catch her a couple times and get on her bicycle again. And then in the clinches, even though or in the 50-50 positions, close and clinching and dirty boxing, I do think that Claressa will have a lot of success with letting her hands go and hitting Savannah more. But I think that that's not where she wants to be, because that's where Savannah can find a real good crack in there, And like I said, I do think that even win or lose, maybe Savannah Marshall ends up dropping Claressa Shields here, because That is simply what she usually does to girls. But until next time, loyal fight fans, I hope you enjoy the fights. It is a good women's showcase. Oh, and then Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgardner. Almost fucking got out of there without that. That's the co-main event, and that's another good fight. That is a very good women's fight. This one we don't need a lot of time on, however. I handedly feel that Michaela Mayer will win this fight. I don't think that it's as close as a 50-50 as the main event. But I think Michaela Mayer is a special talent, and though I love Alicia Baumgardner, I'm a big fan of watching her fights. I think she's a very entertaining fighter and a good fighter. But again, the levels in women's boxing are really kind of all over the place. And so anytime that you get somebody that's really good, that's an A star, if they get an opponent that's got a pulse and you know their name, they go, ooh, this is a good fight. But really, if we're being real here, Michaela Mayer should run this girl over, I actually think. But yeah, enjoy the fights, and we will see you next time. And we got to take a look at some cards, but we might do a fight picks from the future. I doubt that they'll include a pick on that main event, which is a close, good fight.